If you are over 60 and you want to stay independent, to keep driving yourself to appointments, to keep living in your own home, to keep being the person your family relies on, then what you do in the first 15 minutes after every meal matters more than most doctors ever tell you. Because researchers discovered that sitting completely still after eating may be one of the most quietly damaging habits most people over 60 have never even thought about. Not because of what you ate, but because of what happens inside your body during those first 30 to 90 minutes, and whether your muscles step in to help or leave your pancreas to fight that battle completely alone. Most people over 60 already know something is off. The afternoon energy crash that hits like a wall at 2 or 3 o'clock. The foggy head that makes reading feel like wading through mud. That craving for something sweet, a biscuit, a chocolate, anything that shows up out of nowhere an hour after a perfectly decent lunch. Most people assume this is just getting older. They are wrong. These are not the symptoms of aging. They are the symptoms of a blood sugar pattern that millions of people over 60 are living inside of every single day without anyone explaining what is actually causing it or how simple it is to interrupt. Because a peer-reviewed study from the University of Houston found that one simple seated movement, something you can do at your kitchen table while finishing your tea, reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by more than 52%. Not a drug, not a diet, not a gym program. One boring movement, done in the right window of time, using a muscle most people have never heard of. This is boring senior health hacks because the most powerful health tools are almost always the ones nobody is trying to sell you. Before we get into this, if you want health information explained clearly and honestly with no upsell at the end, this channel was made for you. Hit like right now. It tells YouTube this video is worth showing to other people over 60 who need exactly this information. One tap from you reaches people I cannot reach on my own. And subscribe. Every week we cover one boring but genuinely effective health habit. No trends, no miracle cures, no supplements to sell. Just the stuff the science actually supports. Now, let us talk about what is really happening inside your body after every meal. To understand why the afternoon crash happens, and why this one movement fixes it, you need to understand what your body is doing with food in the hour after every meal. When you eat carbohydrates, bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, fruit, anything sweet, your digestive system breaks all of it down into glucose. That glucose enters your bloodstream. Your pancreas detects the surge and releases a hormone called insulin. Insulin's job is to act like a delivery driver, grabbing glucose out of your blood and shuttling it into your cells where it becomes energy. So far, so good. That is exactly what is supposed to happen. The trouble starts when a large amount of glucose arrives at once, especially if your muscles are not active and your liver is already reasonably full. Your body still has to clear that glucose from your blood, and if your muscles are not stepping in to help, the only place left to put the excess is fat cells. Meanwhile, insulin has done its job almost too well. It has pushed so much glucose out of your blood that your sugar level drops, sometimes sharply, often falling below where it started before you ate. That is the crash. Your brain, which runs almost entirely on glucose, panics. It sends out an alarm. Energy is dropping. Fix this immediately. A wave of tiredness rolls over you. Your head goes foggy. Your thoughts get slow and sticky. And then comes that very specific, almost urgent craving for something sweet, a biscuit, a handful of chocolate, whatever your version of it is, that feels almost impossible to ignore. This is not weakness. It is not a lack of willpower. It is pure chemistry. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do, protecting itself from running out of fuel by demanding a rapid refill. Sugar went up fast. Sugar came down fast. And your brain is now in emergency conservation mode. That is what is really happening at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you cannot keep your eyes open. Let me tell you about Dorothy. Dorothy is 68, retired, sharp, and full of energy in the mornings. She gets up early, reads the newspaper, handles her morning without any trouble. But every single day, about an hour after lunch, something happens. Her head goes foggy. She picks up her book, but the words stop making sense. She rereads the same paragraph 3 times. She puts the book down, and like clockwork, around 3 in the afternoon, she goes to the kitchen and opens the biscuit tin. Not because she is hungry, but because something in her body is demanding it. She has been telling herself for years that she has no willpower, a sweet tooth, a bad habit. But that was never the truth. Dorothy was running the same biochemical cycle every single afternoon. Her lunch was sending her blood sugar up fast. Insulin was clearing it. But because Dorothy sat down immediately after eating, her muscles contributed almost nothing to that process. The crash came, her brain panicked, and the biscuit tin was the brain's solution. By 6 in the evening, she felt completely wrung out. Not from anything she had actually done, but from a metabolic roller coaster that had been running inside her body every single afternoon for years. She was not tired from her day. She was exhausted from a pattern nobody had ever taken the time to explain to her. The long-term danger, what this builds toward. Those daily spikes and crashes are not just uncomfortable. Over time, they compound into something far more serious. Your pancreas is not infinite. Every time it is called on to release a large surge of insulin, it does a little more work. Year after year, that wear accumulates. Eventually, your cells begin to ignore the insulin signal, a condition called insulin resistance. In plain language, the key is there, the lock is there, but the lock is jammed. Your pancreas has to release more and more insulin to get the same effect, working harder for less in return. And here is the cruelest part. For a long time, sometimes a decade or more, your routine blood tests can look completely normal. No diagnosis, no red flag, but the tiredness is real. The belly fat is creeping in. The cravings will not let up. You feel like something is off, but nothing on paper confirms it. Here is what that period of time really is, your best window. The earlier you act, the easier the reversal. Once insulin resistance is established, the path back is longer. Right now, before anything is officially broken, the changes required are small, and the results come quickly. But left unchecked, years of repeated blood sugar spikes do real damage. They damage the small blood vessels that feed your eyes, increasing the risk of vision loss. They damage the nerves in your feet and hands, leading to numbness, pain, and wounds that will not heal. They accelerate cognitive decline. The link between insulin resistance and dementia is now strong enough that some researchers call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. They raise the risk of heart disease and stroke, the leading causes of death among people over 60. And they erode the independence that most people over 60 have worked their entire lives to protect. Nobody wants to reach a point where they cannot drive themselves to appointments, or manage their own home, or be the steady presence their children and grandchildren count on. Nobody wants to spend their retirement monitoring blood sugar and managing medication side effects. That future is not inevitable, but avoiding it requires understanding what is building toward it. The good news, the intervention is free, requires no equipment, and takes 10 minutes after a meal. And the muscle responsible is one most people have never heard of. A team of researchers at the University of Houston ran an experiment that caused genuine surprise in the metabolic science community. Their findings were published in 2022 in iScience, a peer-reviewed journal by Cell Press, one of the most respected publishers in biological research. The lead researcher was Professor Mark Hamilton, a physiologist who had spent years studying how specific muscles use fuel. The study had participants sit in a chair, eat a standardized meal, and then perform one simple movement during the post-meal period, the window when blood glucose is rising and the pancreas is preparing to respond. They lifted their heels off the floor while keeping their toes pressed down, slowly, repeatedly, a seated heel raise. That is it. No standing, no walking, no equipment. They could be working at a computer, watching television, talking on the phone. The only thing moving was the back of their foot. What happened next stunned even the researchers who designed the study. Post-meal blood sugar spikes dropped by approximately 52%. Insulin release dropped by close to 60%, meaning the pancreas barely had to engage. The muscle was clearing glucose from the bloodstream so efficiently that a full insulin response was not required. Worth noting, this was a controlled laboratory study, and individual results will vary based on the size of your meal, your current metabolic health, and how consistently you apply the technique. But the mechanism is real, the journal is credible, and the movement costs you nothing to try. The muscle responsible is called the soleus, and understanding how it works changes everything. On the back of your lower leg, just below the knee, there are two muscles stacked on top of each other. The one you can see, the rounded bulge of your calf, is called the gastrocnemius. That is the muscle that flexes when you stand on your toes. But underneath it, deeper inside the leg, hidden between the gastrocnemius above and the shin bone below, sits a second muscle, the soleus, flat, invisible, and unknown to most people. And yet, pound for pound, minute for minute, when it comes to pulling glucose out of your bloodstream, no other muscle in the body comes close to matching it. Why the soleus is different? Most muscles run primarily on glycogen, the stored form of glucose packed away in your liver and muscle tissue between meals. When you exercise, most muscles draw on those internal reserves, not directly from your blood. The soleus is different. It prefers to burn glucose and fat pulled directly from the bloodstream. It is one of the very few muscles with this metabolic profile. Activating it after a meal puts it to work on exactly the glucose you are trying to clear. The glucose from this specific meal, in this specific window. It acts like a second blood sugar control system, running independently of your pancreas. When researchers activated the Soleus in seated participants, it was pulling glucose from the blood so rapidly that the pancreas barely needed to respond. Insulin dropped 60%, not because the body was ignoring the problem, but because the Soleus had already handled most of it. Why it works at any age? The Soleus is a postural muscle. It is always making tiny adjustments to support your leg position, even when you are completely still. Because of this constant background activity, it does not atrophy, decline from disuse, the way other muscles do. After 60, most people lose significant muscle mass elsewhere in the body without noticing. Less muscle means a smaller glucose disposal system. The same meal your body handled easily at 45 produces a sharper spike at 70, simply because there is less muscle available to absorb the load. But the soleus remains available and effective at virtually any age, which is exactly why this particular movement is so valuable for people over 60 specifically. I want to pause here for a moment. If any of what I have described, the afternoon crash, the foggy head, the craving that shows up like clockwork, sounds familiar, I want you to know you are not alone. This is one of the most common and least explained patterns among people over 60. Drop a comment below right now. Tell me your age, where you are watching from, and whether the afternoon crash is something you deal with. It helps me understand who this channel is reaching, and it helps other people reading the comments know they are not the only ones. And if this is the kind of information you wish someone had explained to you years ago, the real reason behind the tiredness, the crashes, the cravings, then subscribe to this channel right now. Every week we take one more of these overlooked patterns and break it down exactly like this. No supplements, no gimmicks, no scare tactics, just the biology behind what your body is actually doing and the boring, simple habit that fixes it. Hit subscribe and the bell so you do not miss the next one. And if you know someone over 60, a friend who is always tired after lunch, a sibling with no afternoon energy, a partner who is always reaching for something sweet, share this video with them right now. The share button is right below. It takes 10 seconds and it might change how they feel every single afternoon. How to do it? The Soleus push-up. You can try this right now while you are watching. Sit in your chair, both feet flat on the floor. Toes stay down throughout. That is the key. Toes planted, heels move. Now slowly lift your heels up as high as feels natural and then lower them back down, up, down, slowly. At your own pace, no rushing, no force, no correct speed. That is the Soleus push-up. Do this for 10 to 15 minutes, starting within a few minutes of finishing your meal. While you are still at the table, while you are watching the news, while you are on the phone, nobody around you will notice. The movement is small enough to be completely invisible from across the room. The timing window. Timing is the most important variable. The goal is to have the Soleus active while glucose from your meal is peaking in your blood, roughly 30 to 90 minutes after eating, depending on what and how much you ate. Start the heel raises within a few minutes of finishing your meal. Do not wait until you feel the crash. By then the peak has passed and the damage is done. The power of this technique is in getting ahead of the spike, not chasing it. Right after the meal, every meal, that is the habit. 4 tools, one for every situation. The Soleus is the most efficient single tool. But more muscle you activate after a meal, the more glucose leaves your blood. Here are 4 options, all of them free, all of them fitting into a normal day. Tool 1. The 10-minute walk. In one study, a walking group and a sitting group ate the same meal. The walker's blood sugar peak was roughly half that of the sitters. From a 10-minute walk at an easy, comfortable stroll, no brisk pace required, no special route. Around the block, around the living room, up and down the hallway. The only rule, move your legs as soon as possible after finishing the meal. For anyone with mobility concerns, even a slow walk holding a wall or using a frame counts. Any movement is vastly better than none. Tool 2. Squats. Squats activate the largest muscles in your body, your thighs and your glutes, pulling glucose out fast. Stand, feet shoulder-width apart, toes slightly out. Lower yourself as far as comfortable, back straight, knees tracking over your toes. Push back up, 10 slow repetitions. A practical trick, turn the kettle on for your after-dinner tea and do your squats while it boils. That is the perfect amount of time. Hold the back of a sturdy chair for balance if needed. Even partial squats count. Tool 3. The seated heel raise. Already covered, but it earns its place on this list because it is the tool that is always available. At a restaurant, in the car, after a knee replacement, during a long phone call. No other option competes with it for accessibility. Toes down, heels up, heels down, 10 to 15 minutes. Anywhere, anytime, invisible. Tool 4. The washing up. Studies show 15 minutes of light housework immediately after eating produces glucose results comparable to a 10-minute walk. Washing up by hand, wiping counters, sweeping the floor. You are standing, moving, your muscles are working. The critical detail, timing. Most people do the washing up before they eat or an hour later. Move it to immediately after the meal. You are going to do it anyway. You need no extra motivation. Just do it now instead of later, and your body handles the glucose while you handle the kitchen. Now, let us bring everything together. Every time you eat, your blood sugar rises. That is normal. The problem is when it rises too steeply, crashes too fast, and the cycle repeats day after day, year after year, until the pancreas begins to struggle. The afternoon crash, the foggy head, the heavy eyelids, the craving at 3 o'clock is not aging. It is chemistry, and it is a pattern your muscles have the power to interrupt if you give them the chance in the right window of time. A 2022 University of Houston study found that activating a muscle called the Soleus deep in your lower leg with a simple seated heel raise reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by 52% and cut insulin release by 60%. 4 tools available after every meal: the 10-minute walk, squats anchored to the kettle, the seated heel raise that nobody around you will notice, and the washing up done immediately rather than an hour later. All free, all practical, all effective. After 60, this matters more than ever because muscle mass declines, your glucose disposal system shrinks, and the roller coaster gets louder. But the Soleus remains available and effective at virtually any age, in virtually any physical condition. The magic word is consistency, not intensity, not perfection. Just 10 minutes after every meal, as often as you can manage it. Here is what is worth doing right now, today, after your very next meal, not next week. Today, spend 10 minutes doing one of the 4 things. Set a timer. Notice how you feel at the 60-minute mark. Pay attention to the afternoon. And at your next doctor's appointment, ask for your fasting glucose number, not just whether it is normal, but the actual figure. Ask whether an HbA1c test would be appropriate for you. That is a blood test showing your average blood sugar over the past 3 months, a much more complete picture than a single reading. Know your baseline. Watch the direction it moves. If you are already on medication for blood sugar or blood pressure, tell your doctor you are starting consistent post-meal movement. Improved insulin sensitivity can sometimes mean doses need adjusting over time, a good outcome, but one to manage with medical guidance, not on your own. Everything in this video is educational. It is based on published peer-reviewed research. It is not a replacement for your doctor's advice. Take what is useful here and run it past someone who knows your full health picture. Here is my challenge for you. After your very next meal today, set a timer for 10 minutes. Do the heel raises at the table. Take a short walk. Do the washing up straight away. Anything other than sitting completely still. Then come back and tell us how it went. Leave a comment below. Tell me your age, what you tried, and whether you felt any different an hour later. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to read to finally give this a go. Hundreds of people check this comment section every day. Your 2 sentences could change someone's afternoon. If this video gave you something useful, hit like, not for my numbers. Because it tells YouTube this information is worth showing to more people over 60 who are dealing with the crash, the fatigue, and the blood sugar concerns they cannot quite explain. One tap from you reaches people I cannot reach on my own. Subscribe to Boring Senior Health Hacks. Every week, one unglamorous, overlooked health habit, broken down properly in plain language. No miracle cures, no supplements to sell, just the boring stuff that the science actually supports. And share this video with someone you care about, who is over 60, a friend who is always tired after lunch, a sibling who says they have no energy, a partner who reaches for something sweet every afternoon at 3 o'clock, a parent whose blood sugar is creeping up. Send it to them right now before you close this tab. It takes 10 seconds, and the right information at the right moment can genuinely change the direction of someone's health. Thank you for watching. Now go and eat something and then move. I will see you in the next one.